Welcome back. We're here for another episode.
So I had this idea, and they're all kind of looking at me thinking, I said, I just wanted to talk about Word of the Year. Do any of you guys do Word of the Year? It has just gotten so popular, and I've been aware of it for years. I know there are books about it, and I might be the only one here that does it. But first, we're going to tell you Hank's response. He says, oh, yeah, I know about Word of the Year.
So basically when I heard that, I thought you meant like a college or like a literary organization making a word the word of the year based off like by how frequently it's used. So I thought of the Oxford word of the year, and
So this is like the Oxford English Dictionary,
I
which is
love
kind of
that.
considered the gold standard of dictionaries.
And they make a new word every year, new
The
words or whatever.
OED.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this year,
In 2024,
2024, the finalists are slop, romanticy, lore, demure, and dynamic pricing. Personally, I'd go with dynamic pricing.
Dynamic pricing?
Yup.
and I work in your middle school, and demure gets used a lot, but kids are using it in a different way than it's like traditional definition. Could you articulate how they use it?
Like how
It's adjacent to cool. Like it's
no,
okay. Well, help me then.
I guess so, but like Oxford has it as adjective of a person reserved or restrained in appearance or behavior.
Right. That's the word I know.
But it came
But the
from
way-
this TikTok video.
Yeah,
Did you
the
know
way
that?
kids
This
are
woman
using
it?
demure
Very demure.
is a little different.
Yeah.
It's like cool. Like
Yeah.
that's how I
So
understand.
I love that because I also
Which I
love
guess
how
is the
words
same.
have different meanings, and and I thought that's a whole fun thing too, and how language is still a growing thing. You know, we do add words. We Hank, you and I make up words. We've done that since you were little and we were down here.
The
We-
fall
we-
up the stairs thing.
Yes,
What word was that?
shwoody. We'd call a lot of things shwoody, and then we'd also do epic.
Oh, I feel like Hank's like gonna fall in love in the next few years, and he's probably gonna have shwoody as a term of endearment.
And then we do outrageous things, and we would just call them epic fails, you know, because we
Yeah.
purposely fail. But, you know, there's so many things that words can tie a memory to, which I think is kind of fun.
Another example of Hank's brilliance: when he was younger, he had a thing called car math, and this went on for years. And he would ask us and strangers, "What does a Chevy plus a Volkswagen equal?" And whatever you guessed, you were wrong, and he had a different number. Sometimes it was 1,000,000, sometimes it was like 35.
Except for the few times where I'd let you get one right to feel good about yourself.
Yeah, it was nonsensical, and it went on for a very long time.
It was very sensical.
Okay, what is a DeSoto and a Chevy?
2.
No. not even close.
I'm creator of car math. I can't be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. But that is one of those talk shows at night. He's always saying, guess the interview. You know, he's always saying, guess what number am I thinking about? Of course, no one ever gets it because
Yeah.
it's his number. Speaking of words, though, that reminds me of another story with Hank that we just had so much fun on. We have our names in at co-op for seniors that's called Real Life. And we had, and this was when he was newly writing, so he was sitting in the back and writing, so it was a long time ago. But we had an appointment to go look at an apartment that day, and we were just talking about it in the front seat. And all of a sudden, Hank pipes up, "Okay, I have a game to play. Is it real life or fake life?" Do you remember that? And he'd read a sentence. Hank really loves mashed potatoes, or kind of whatever it was, but he'd have these, and then we'd have to guess whether it was real life or fake life. And I thought that was so fun, picking up on one word that we said, and
I just went on a website for that most of the time now. Or when we play like, you have to name like a bird or something.
Yes.
That started with every letter of the alphabet.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that one was just you in a notebook. That was before you. Now we look up things. Now he uses our phone and he asks questions that he can kind of look up. And of course he gets it right and we don't. But that's
Not
life,
to
right?
keep the spotlight on Hank, but this is making me think of another story. I wish I knew how old you were, but I'd guess around kindergarten. And in our neighborhood, and we live in the same neighborhood as Jamie's parents and Hank's other grandparents. It's like the Longfellow neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, we have a restaurant called the Longfellow Grill. And it's one of Hank's other grandma's favorite restaurants. And so we've been there many times with his other grandparents. And one day, Jamie and Hank were with Grandma Karen and you were going to go out to eat, and you were talking about which restaurant, and Hank kept saying, let's go to the P restaurant. And they could not figure it out. They were like thinking of restaurants that start with a P, food items that start pizza, like, and you were like, no, the P restaurant. And then weeks later, Jamie and Hank were driving down Lake Street, and outside of this restaurant, there's a giant P for the parking lot. And Hank goes, the P restaurant.
I mean,
Yes, of course.
Obviously.
to be fair, you do enter through that parking lot.
It's
so I
true.
assumed that.
So, put it on you for a minute. Do you have any last words for us, Hank, about that? About stories about Hank today?
No, but wasn't there another restaurant that I had a really weird nickname for?
Oh, the blue.
The Blue Restaurant is the
Yeah.
Culver's you go
Culver's.
to it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Culver's. Yeah.
Yes. So now we're back to what I thought about word of the day. And what I always think is interesting, this has been around a long time, and I looked up on Amazon, there are a bunch of books about word of the year. I'm not saying word of the day. I'm not saying
Word
it
of
right.
the year,
A word
yeah.
of the year. But it's kind of like a reminder of, it's like a guiding light. It's not like a goal. It's not like anything, but it's just something you want to kind of
It's
ground
different than
you
a
during the year.
resolution in that
It's not a
way.
resolution.
You're not
Yep.
trying to change something.
Yep.
You're adding some inspiring guidance to your life.
And it just made me think about a word that has totally changed my life. So I tried a couple of years to have a different word of the year. I remember working at that, but I always came back to the same word.
Timothy Titus.
And I decided that this is kind of my word for life, because it's really been life-changing to me. But what I found interesting, I put on my on a group on Facebook, I was asking people if they had words for the year, and all kinds of people did. So I thought this is way more popular than I ever thought I was. So we would like to hear your word of the year and why, because I think that will be some really interesting comments, and that's what we can come back to. But my word is curiosity, and it totally changed. Well, first it changed my business. I just have to say that when I started teaching card classes, it was at a really stressful time of my life, and I am an extreme introvert. You wouldn't know that when you see me on here, but it was really hard to go places.
For the record, when you started doing Facebook Live, us kids could not believe it. I mean, you didn't even really want to be in photographs before that.
No, you went off to college and you said, I don't have pictures of you, Mom. And I go, yeah, it's on purpose. And
Yeah.
here I am.
But for you to be the person that went viral and like did things by putting yourself on social media still kind of blows us all away.
But for a long time, she never showed her face.
Right.
It was just her hands doing the projects.
But you would also say through this teaching and all of this, I have become a different person.
Oh, yeah.
than the person
Oh, yeah.
you
Oh, you are.
were married. But when I first started, I was so insecure, and this is true about a lot of things in life, so just incorporate this, but I would feel very nervous about going to a party, and am I going to mess up? You know how easy it is to put the focus on yourself. The word for me is curiosity. And I even would visualize when I go to a party, I would visualize stepping into a circle of curiosity, because it took it off of me. So I'm meeting these people that are at this card making party, and I'm curious about what they're doing. I'm curious to see what card they're going to like best. And it kind of just changes that whole framework of viewing life. And I feel like that even about other things. Like, so if something goes bad, I can certainly have my pity party. But then after that, it's just kind of time to step back and think, I wonder what I could do differently. I wonder what could have changed this. So in a way it's lighthearted, but in another way it's very deep inside me, because I think it's just a reminder that there's always another way of looking at something, and there's always something we can learn, and we all make mistakes, and really in life it really isn't all about us anyway, so you might as well just be curious.
I mean, that being your guiding word, it takes something that we all feel, which is fear or stress, and it allows for that experience to be transformed into something that's more hopeful. It's like the idea of like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. And even if we think about making cards, so if we get back to being really practical, instead of, when I first started, I had never made cards, and so I went to my sister's house and we would make a card and then show each other. This was before the internet, so we didn't have ideas, and we go, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. But if you can be playful, it's kind of about like being playful as a child again, and be curious. I wonder what would happen if I did this, and not caring if things turn out. Not.
Well, and imagine
caring.
cards that have really been successful, or different like strategies or techniques for making cards, a lot of those are found through trial and error, and failing is part of curiosity. It's like kind of seeing failure as, well, I tried that, didn't work, let's be curious.
My turn? My turn. My word is within, which is the opposite of without. And without means so many different things, but it's usually negative. And within is physiologically, there are so many things that are within. Our sense of smell comes from within. It's not the nose necessarily, but it is the olfactory system. Our eyes, we think we're seeing out, but it's all within because it's the signal that is sent to our brain. Spiritually, there's an aspect of within that God talked about. The kingdom is within. And so there's just so many things that I just love about that. And I journal all the time, and it's usually about something that dawned on me. And what dawned on me was something that came from within.
He often gets up 2 or 3 times during the night to go write something, and then goes back to bed.
I do.
I think it's also interesting, there's like a meta layer to that, because a journal is without, and like the act of writing is outside of you. But if the content, if the words, if we're getting back to words, the words represent within.
It's
Like,
kind of
they're
processing
expressing,
your within.
but outwardly.
Interesting. The other thing I find interesting about that is when you look back over our lives, I was an extreme introvert and you were an extreme extrovert. And now we're kind of both in the middle. I mean,
Yeah.
which is also very interesting because you are not the extrovert
That I used to be.
that you used to be. So it's also just an interesting thing how life does change and mellows or improves. I think Hank, put it on yourself, has a comment to make here. I see him over there.
Grandpa, because to me right now, you are a huge extrovert. Like,
Yeah.
I could never go up to people and just, like, talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, how big of an extrovert were you?
If this is you mellowed out,
Yeah.
I was out of control, I think. You know, there was times that I was embarrassing to everybody around me. And when I finally figured that out, I was embarrassing to myself. I was like, oh,
I mean, that's a
Tim.
profound.
And
It is profound.
it actually, it still happens every once in a while. I'm in like in a good mood or in a good group of friends, and I kind of act out. And I don't, it's not out of control like it used to be.
I think that the embarrassment, as a member of the family, like I represent to some extent, like what we felt like when you were being overtly extroverted with strangers or with like employees
Your
at a
friends.
restaurant, my friends. It's not so much that you're embarrassing us or you're embarrassing yourself, but you putting yourself on the spot and these other people on the spot just naturally puts us on the spot, and it makes us uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a part of us that was kind of like, oh, now we're the center of attention, or you're drawing us out of our like hiding safe place into the public eye.
And that's always been the case of Karen and I.
Yes.
You know, she really is like, don't bring any attention to me or to what's going on, or you know.
And
And I
most
do.
of your family is like that, so maybe
The
it is a
t- yeah,
reaction
the-
to
Your family are
Yeah.
extroverted energy
Yes.
would accurately describe all of you.
Yes.
Even if like, Paul's a little more introverted, but like
Yeah.
I don't, especially when you're together,
Yeah.
it's like energy.
Yeah,
The other
it
thing,
is. And let's blame Margaret,
Oh, for sure.
my mother.
but I think the other thing is that there's less of a part of you that's extroverted. You still like going out. Like he'll say, "Oh, Karen, I need to go get one little thing for supper," and I'll say, "A supper would be fine without it." And he'll say, "Do you need me here?" And I go, "No." And he says, "I want to go out. I want to go out and see people." You know, you have that part that likes to go out and be extroverted, engage with everyone, but it's a much smaller part of you. because you also love being alone, journaling, listening to podcasts. So you live a much quieter life
I do.
than I ever thought he would kind of at this age. I really thought at this age he would be going out to listen to live music every night and just be gone all
And
the
I
time.
used to.
Because we loved doing that when we were young, and when we were kids we couldn't do that so much. But I always thought that's what the future would be, and you are much more of a
Yep.
mellow that part. So that's really interesting, I think.
Every once in a while, I ask Karen, I says, did you see so-and-so with me? No. I must have gone by myself, to a concert,
Yeah.
And I used to do that a lot.
Yeah, I have many memories of you going to concerts
the
by
400,
yourself.
the 400 bar,
Yeah.
Cedar Riverside.
The interesting thing, I feel like the older I've gotten and the more self-aware I've gotten, the more extroverted I've gotten. But I'm not the same extroverted as you. I don't like woo. I think was a word that
Yeah.
we did a personality thing, and your woo is like really strong.
Winning others over, just engaging and kind of pulling them in.
I think I have a different, similar, like it's not woo, but it's like similar to woo.
Yeah.
And that's emerged more as I've gotten older.
I think you have a gift of getting people to open up. Kind
Yeah.
of that conversational is kind of more.
I like deeper dives.
Yes.
I don't necessarily need to network and figure out how we're all connected.
Pretty superficial.
No, it's not how I would describe it. He said it.
Shallow.
But I think both of you having those be your words have shaped you. Like when I think about who you both are, those words accurately encapsulate you in like a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And it requires being intentional. You have to have the word guide you for it to mean anything.
And in my case, I think the word did change me because it was about who I wanted to be. It's not who I was. I didn't necessarily feel like I was that curious, but it was by taking the focus off and being curious. I mean, there was a part of me interested in that, but by changing my focus and choosing to become curious and having that be my guiding light, I think also really helped change me into what more I wanted to be.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, part of it was trying to find a way to be more successful and effective in your work. But along the way, you started to like discover yourself as more effective and more connected and more energetic. I don't know if you remember this, but it's funny that that's your word because during one of our block parties growing up, we had a line dance. And like everyone gets up and they're all participating in a line dance. There's a caller, there's music, and you and I were left alone at a picnic table, and you were
You and me?
yeah, just the
Okay,
two
I was
of
gonna
us.
say, yeah,
And I was
I'm sure it
probably
would be me now.
I was probably around Hank's age, maybe a little bit younger, 10, 11, 12. But there was this moment where we're watching all of our neighbors have fun, and you were asking, do you want to go do it? And I was like, no. And then we sat there a little longer, and you're like, let's just go try it. Like, we can do this. And I was like, no.
So
And at
what
one
was
point,
the-
you were like, I'll give you $1 to go do it. And I still said no. But the thing I do remember is refusing the invitation, and then continuing. We just sat there alone, and we're watching everyone participate in this. A little moment of shame happened because, like, the invitation represented something: curiosity, growth, and engaging
Taking
and
a risk.
trying and taking a risk, and refusing to agree to join you and our neighbors didn't feel good. It left me feeling small and ashamed, and I remember how powerful that was. It did not represent who I wanted to be, and I think a big part of me resolved in that moment to accept invitations, to dance, to try things. And it really goes back to that moment, and probably other moments, but that moment stands out.
Okay,
as a
I don't
memory.
remember that moment, but what it says to me really clearly, the reason I would have offered you was $1 was my feeling bad about myself not daring to get up there and
Right,
go
no,
dance.
totally.
And feeling like I didn't want you to feel like me, like we just can't, you know what I mean? And
Totally.
feeling like I wouldn't have gone up there alone, but hey, I'll pay you $1 and we can go up there together.
And it was you.
And it's kind
it
of
was
a-
you convincing yourself. Too.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because if I wanted to, I would have just gone up. So
Right.
it's really interesting that that's two
This-
stories of the same situation, but totally different experiences and what it
that
meant.
That sounds like you trying to convince me to eat that hot sauce that Justin makes every year. You always offer me like $5 and I try to bargain you up.
And
Now
so
you know.
when
It
he
was
said
fun.
yes, he was wearing his tighty whities. We're in the kitchen and it was winter, and wasn't, or this is a different story.
That's a different story.
Oh, the different story. You went and stood in the snow for
Yeah,
$5
that's-
in your underwear.
Okay, that
And
was
he was
a
like
lower
5
ask.
years
That was a
old,
lower
and
ask.
You're out there shivering.
Yeah, but the story I was talking about is how
It's hot or cold.
this also happened. This has happened multiple times. But like 8 months ago is the one I'm talking about when you were like pouring it on your hummus. I'm like, how do you do that? And you were like, I'll give you $5 to do a spoonful. I was like, I'll do a drop of it for $5.
And he was like dry heaving in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, that was.
This is
a drop.
homemade
Okay.
by my friend Justin.
Okay,
It's
so
all
that's not-
super
no.
ghost, super
No,
hot
okay,
peppers. It's hotter than anything you can buy in a grocery store.
So, Hank, an invitation doesn't mean you need to accept it. Okay, so you've been learned
Well,
from
I
What we're
just wanted-
trying-
I just wanted.
what we're trying to get across is no matter what the ask, just say yes.
I just wanted money.
That could sound like a dangerous idea to me.
Maybe don't do that.
No, don't.
No.
'Cause he's going to be
Climb Mount
a
Everest
teenager
and parachute
in
off
February.
for $20.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, you guys, we hope you enjoyed laughing with us.
No.
Oh, you're not done.
And to
Your word.
round it out,
Your
when we
word.
started talking about this before we started recording, I have heard many people talk about this. I love learning new words. I'd say I have an interesting vocabulary kind of at my disposal for unique moments, and I'll give you one right now. Axismus. Accismus, I believe. But it's the taking or feigning disinterest in something you want. So if you're at a holiday meal and there's one piece of pie left or one scoop of candied yams left and you really want it, you might be the one to like offer it up to the table. And as people say no, they might be doing Axismus if they want it because they're like being put on the spot and they don't want to. Like Minnesota
Yes.
Nice is like this tradition of not taking the last piece. But it might also be Axismus to do the act of trying to get someone to take it in the hopes that it'll just end up sitting there and ultimately you can then own that you want it. But Axismus, like, so, like, I love words. My degrees are in writing, and at the same time, I've never had a word. I think when I was like a teenager, reverence was the word. You know, I think end of high school and college, reverence was sort of like my guiding word. That would be the last time I remember
I love
having
that.
one. And the thing I loved about reverence at the time was how flexible and profound and silly the word can be. Sometimes the most reverent thing is actually the irreverent thing. Satire can be an effective way of communicating something deeply powerful and reverent. It's also a word that rests in our like minds as kind of a stuffy old word, but if you think about it, it's a very generous word. It is actually like the kind of word that can reshape like curiosity, how you see the world around you. It can make people that frustrate you more tolerable. It can make the labors of life more meaningful, for the things you do have to not be taken for granted. And, you know, in a way that like really helped me become who I am. The last 20 some years, I haven't thought about it as much, but I remember from being in late teens and early 20s, reverence was like my word.
I love that word.
It's no longer just a word. You've incorporated that.
I think
That
it,
is a
yeah,
part-
I think I
that is
no
really
longer
a part
needed
of-
its guidance,
Yeah.
but I still like live with it as an important
You
thing.
do.
But
You do.
it's not like, it was actually drawing me in its direction for a long time
From within.
from within.
So we had no idea where today's conversation will go. So I have enjoyed this, and I said, "What? Oh, you
Oh,
have something
Hank
to
has
say,
one.
Hank?
And well, this is kind of related. Okay, you can finish talking. 'Cause it's related
Well-
to what you're gonna say.
Okay, then I have a last question for you too. But I just wanted. I was just thinking. Everyone said, "What? We're going to do word of the year? How does that fit into anything?" And I said, "I don't know if it does, but we just won't publish it if it doesn't work." But I think it's interesting as we talk about us all together here, and we talk about different words and meaning of life. It's just how conversations take form and just go deeper into things. So hopefully you enjoy going along with us. And I'm just curious if this has inspired you to think of a word. I mean, I think a word could be changed even monthly. this is anyway brought some riches to my life.
Or ask for a word to appear. You could like incorporate it into a prayer or like manifest it. Like, I'm lacking direction in my life right now. I need a word. And over the coming days, something might jump out at you, and that becomes like your word.
So were you going to say, Hank? And then I also want to ask if you have a word. Or does this give you any idea of a word that you would?
Schwoozy? What was that?
For Woozy?
Showsy?
No.
I feel like you need to wink every
Do you have
time you
any
say that.
closing thoughts?
I don't know. I just don't. I can't think of a word to live by, though. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Something for you to think about.
Also, at Christmas, like at at the Olson's house, if they pray or even here, you should try and incorporate Excessmas and see if anyone asks you what it means.
Oh, okay. We'll watch for that. Oh, I love it. Okay, and we will end. We're just going to end with something kind of a little lighthearted here after this conversation. So this is, we're going to talk about a card that made a difference. This is actually just a cute little thing. I said, Elizabeth says, I do not remember the first card I made, but it was a little costly. Paper, glue, tape, designer series paper, stamp, an emboss machine, stamp set, pens, ink, embossing folder, and the list goes on. And I just thought we needed a little humor because some of us in life just start things very simply and just, start with the basics. Some of us just go the whole thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Some of us are gearheads.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.